100 feet of icy cold Lake Superior water, but several people have made the voyage to this dangerous location to view the most famous of Great Lakes shipwrecks.
46 years later, we finally learn why no bodies from the Edmund Fitzgerald shipwreck were ever found. The tragic sinking in 1975 remains a mystery, with all crew members disappearing without a trace. The ship, a marvel of engineering, sailed into Lake Superior's dangerous waters on a cold November day, but wasn't prepared for the fierce storm ahead. Why, after all these years, does the lake still keep the secrets of the lost crew, never revealing where their bodies lie? Let's step into the mystery of this silent and forgotten tragedy. The story began on a cold November day in 1975. The SS Edmund Fitzgerald was one of the largest ships on the Great Lakes, and a great example of engineering at that time. But even with its size and strength, it couldn't withstand the rough waters of Lake Superior. Captain Ernest McSorley, a sailor with more than 40 years of experience, set out with his crew of 29 men. They were carrying 26,000 tons of iron ore pellets to a steel mill near Detroit. The trip started off normally, but as they approached the eastern side, a dangerous storm began to form. As the storm grew, the captain reported worsening conditions. These were the last words anyone heard from the ship before it vanished. What happened in those final moments remains a mystery, leaving many to wonder what secrets lie beneath the waves. Some called it a once-in-a-lifetime storm. It brought strong winds, giant waves, and freezing temperatures. Captain McSorley, however, trusted his ship and crew to make it through. The ship had survived tough storms before, and he believed they could handle the lake's fury. But as the storm got worse, so did the ship's situation. There were reports of leaks, the radar wasn't working right, and the lifeboats were damaged. Despite all these problems, his final radio message at 7:10 p.m. on November 10th sounded calm. "We are holding our own." Just minutes later, the ship vanished from radar, sinking into the lake and leaving behind many unanswered questions and grief. Many theories have tried to explain why the ship sank, from problems with its structure to human error, but no one knows for sure. The mystery of the ship continues to capture the public imagination, inspiring books, songs, and documentaries. But that wasn't the worst of it. The sinking showed not only the dangers of the sea, but also the strength of the human spirit in the face of nature's greatest challenges. In the cold, deep water, temperatures drop close to freezing, especially in the deepest parts of the lake. This is because the lake is so large that it takes a long time to warm up, even in summer. Far below, where the sun can't reach, the water stays cold all year round. These extreme temperatures are dangerous for both people and the creatures that live in the lake. People exposed to the cold water can quickly suffer from hypothermia, making it almost impossible to survive if they stay in the water for too long. The powerful storms that hit the area, combined with its great depth, make it very difficult to carry out recovery operations. When the wreck was found, it was thanks to sonar technology, but the cold and depth made it very difficult to recover bodies or investigate the accident further. The dark, icy waters are dangerous for divers, and even advanced underwater vehicles struggle with the intense pressure at such depths. But the challenges don't stop there. Its vast size and depth also mean that it takes almost 200 years for all the water in the lake to fully circulate. This slow movement affects the distribution of nutrients and pollutants, often leaving the deeper waters isolated from what happens at the surface. The cold, heavy water at the bottom remains separate from the warmer water near the top, creating layers that don't mix easily. The deep waters hint at many mysteries, including hidden features and possibly unknown creatures living in its murky depths. This massive lake has also played a major role in human history, serving as an important route for centuries. Native Americans were the first to travel its waters, followed by European explorers, and later it became a busy route for commercial shipping. Experts believe that the violent sinking, exacerbated by a violent storm, may have trapped the crew inside the ship. Evidence suggests that the front of the ship was deeply buried in the lake bed, suggesting a violent impact that probably blocked any escape routes. Another theory is that the crew, weakened by the freezing cold, were swept away by the strong currents, their bodies sinking to the bottom and possibly becoming entangled in the wreckage. The currents are incredibly strong, reaching up to 3 knots in some areas. It's very possible that the crew had no chance of escaping and were swept away, lost forever in the vast depths. Even with today's advanced technology, it's still extremely difficult to explore the deepest areas, as they are covered in layers of silt and debris, making it almost impossible to recover any remains. And that's not the worst of it. These depths are also home to countless shipwrecks, each with its own sad story. The ship is just one of many that have met their end in the dangerous waters of the Great Lakes. It's a constant reminder of how unpredictable and deadly the lake can be. Perhaps the cold, dark waters are holding on to their secrets, refusing to let go of the souls lost in tragedy. The lake's reputation as unforgiving and dangerous is well-deserved, and its deep waters continue to inspire both fascination and sadness. In addition to its tragic place in history, the sinking led to important changes in maritime regulation and safety. Investigations and studies to understand what went wrong and prevent future tragedies have shaped the way maritime safety is handled today. The U.S. Coast Guard, the National Transportation Safety Board, and the Lake Carriers Association all conducted thorough investigations, but no clear cause of the sinking was ever found. The uncertainty surrounding the sinking has led to many theories and guesses, including ideas about possible problems with the ship, crew error, and harsh weather conditions. Despite all the investigations and efforts to find out, the true cause of the disaster is still unknown. The story of the ship continues to hold our attention, reminding us how powerful and dangerous the lake can be. Leaving the harrowing story behind, we venture into the subsequent changes in maritime protocols and safety measures that resulted from this disaster. Tragedy and tribute. In recent years, efforts have been made to remember and honor the Edmund Fitzgerald and its crew. A memorial stands in Whitefish Bay, Michigan, and an annual ceremony is held there to remember the lost seamen. The event includes the laying of wreaths and a moment of silence in honor of those who died. The ship's story has also been kept alive in cultural works, such as the song "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald" by Gordon Lightfoot. The song tells the sad story of the crew and their families and has become a famous piece of Canadian folk music. In addition, many books and documentaries have examined the tragedy, offering detailed views of what happened and its aftermath. These works highlight the importance of understanding how dangerous the sea can be. The loss of the ship's crew remains a sad and mysterious chapter in history. No bodies have ever been found, and the terrible storm and strong currents of the lake have turned the event into an enduring tragedy surrounded by uncertainty. The deep waters of Lake Superior keep their secrets, never revealing what really happened to the men of the ship. But the mystery wasn't the worst of it. 2 decades after the tragic sinking, something unexpected was discovered that added even more mystery to the story of the disaster. This discovery only added to the fascination of what really happened, and made the event even more significant in maritime history. On July 4, 1995, a group of adventurers led by Canadian Dr. Joseph McInnes set off on an expedition to find the wreck. Dr. McInnes was well known for his deep-sea explorations, and this journey had been in the works for quite some time. The team used the latest sonar technology and underwater vehicles to track down the ship. After several days of searching, they finally found it. The ship was resting about 530 feet underwater, roughly 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Bay, Michigan. When the team began exploring the wreck, they came across something unexpected. The crew's bodies were still surprisingly intact, preserved by the cold water. It was a haunting scene. Some crew members were still in their uniforms, seated in the dining area or lying in their bunks, while others were found on the deck. The freezing temperatures and the low oxygen levels at that depth had slowed down the process of decay, keeping the bodies well preserved. This discovery brought a mix of emotions: sadness, respect, and closure. For the families of the crew who had spent 20 years wondering what happened to their loved ones, This find provided some long-awaited answers. The explorers took great care to document everything they found, making sure not to disturb the bodies out of respect for both the deceased crew and their grieving families. But this wasn't the end of the story. The recovery of the bodies reopened old questions about how the ship had sunk. Investigators started revisiting different theories, like whether the ship's structure had failed or if a massive wave had caused the disaster. As the news spread, public interest grew once again. Documentaries, books, and articles were produced, offering fresh perspectives on the ship's tragic end. The discovery made headlines in newspapers, magazines, and TV stations across the country. For the families who had been waiting for answers for 2 decades, seeing the ship and their loved ones gave them a sense of peace. Finally, they knew where their relatives were, and it brought some closure. This find also reminded everyone of the risks that sailors take when navigating the Great Lakes, leading to renewed calls for better safety measures and responsibility in the shipping industry. But even then, there was more to take away from this tragedy. Over time, the story became a symbol of remembrance. It was not just about the shipwreck. It became a lasting tribute to those who lost their lives at sea, ensuring their legacy would never be forgotten. The story has become part of popular culture, inspiring many books, documentaries, and movies. When Joseph McInnes and his team of explorers discovered the wreck, they found a haunting scene. The cold water of the lake slows down the decay of anything that sinks, which means bodies that end up on the lake bed could stay there for a very long time, never floating to the surface. In warmer waters, bodies often rise due to the gases that form, but in Lake Superior, the cold keeps them submerged, weighed down by their water-soaked clothing. The storm that sank the ship was massive, with waves as tall as 35 feet. If any remains had floated up, they were likely pulled back down by the lake, disappearing forever into its depths. This makes you wonder, how many ships, how many lives has it taken, leaving no evidence? Lake Superior has earned its dangerous reputation. Countless shipwrecks lie beneath its surface, each with its own tragic story. The lake's waters remain cold all year round, rarely rising above 40 degrees Fahrenheit even in the summer, making it particularly hard on anyone who falls in. But here's something even more disturbing. The pressure deep in the lake prevents air from forming in bodies, so even those that manage to rise are quickly pulled back down by the weight of the water. The storm that sank the ship is a perfect example of how unpredictable it can be, showing that even well-prepared crews can fall victim to its power. With each passing year, the story grows and becomes part of the collective memory of those who hear it. Their story serves as a reminder of the power of the lake and the lives lost on its waters. The crew were experienced sailors, each with their own story and reasons for being on the ship. They had dedicated their lives to the hard work of sailing on the lake, which sadly cost them everything. It is notoriously dangerous, often claiming ships and their crews without warning. The sinking is a stark example of how powerful and unpredictable it can be. As we learn more about this tragedy, we're reminded of the great risks seafarers take and the importance of respecting the dangers of life at sea. As the waves of history ripple forward, the saga of the Edmund Fitzgerald serves as a bridge to our next chapter, exploring the wider impact of maritime disasters. Unraveling the mysteries. After the disaster, many investigations were launched to find out what caused the ship to sink. Groups such as the U.S. Coast Guard, the National Transportation Safety Board, and the Lake Carriers Association investigated. But despite all their efforts, no one could come up with a solid reason for the sinking. This has led to many theories, from problems with the ship's structure to human error to the extreme weather that day. The sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald didn't just leave its mark on music and literature, it also led to major changes in maritime safety regulations. These new rules should help prevent future tragedies. But we can't help but wonder how many more ships and sailors will be lost forever in the depths of Lake Superior. On the 10th of November, 1975, she sank and all 29 crew members lost their lives. Their families were devastated, especially as the bodies of their loved ones were never found. This made the loss even harder to come to terms with. leaving the families in a state of constant pain and confusion. Funerals were held, but without the bodies, the mourning process didn't feel complete. The rituals designed to bring comfort were missing something important. But that wasn't the worst of it. Families were left with a sense of emptiness and lingering heartache. The ship wasn't just lost, it was a symbol of the lives taken, with no clear answers as to what happened. Although new safety measures were put in place after the sinking, it didn't make things any easier for the families who still had so many unanswered questions. In their search for closure, families have had to accept the reality of moving on without the traditional goodbye of a funeral. Many families held memorial services and built monuments in honor of the crew members. Every year, ceremonies are held to commemorate their loss, but these efforts didn't ease the pain of not knowing what really happened to their loved ones. Over time, these families continued to search for answers, talking to experts and pushing for further investigations, but the lack of clear explanations only added to their frustration. But while these changes have made sailing safer and helped prevent similar tragedies, they have come too late for the crew's families. These families are still living with unresolved grief and unanswered questions. It is a story of deep loss and sorrow, not only for the families, but for the entire maritime community. Shipping practices and safety regulations have changed, but the cost of these improvements has been high, both emotionally and financially. The memory of those lost remains with us, and the tragic event that took their lives is still with us. They often think back to that terrible night and wonder if anything could have been done to prevent the disaster. Although the ship is gone, its story lives on as a powerful reminder of the importance of safety and constant awareness. It also shows us how powerful and unpredictable nature can be, and why it's important to respect the dangers of the sea. This tragedy has deeply affected not only the families of the crew, but also the maritime community and the world. The ship will always remain a symbol of the power of nature and the need to respect the risks of the sea. Over the past 2,000 years, advances in technology have allowed deeper exploration of the lake where the ship sank. Tools such as underwater robots have mapped the bottom of the lake and examined the wreck. One surprising find was a dead zone around the wreck, where the water is devoid of oxygen and no life can survive. Some theories suggest that the bodies could be trapped in the wreckage, or that the lake's ecosystem has absorbed them. Despite all this research, the full details of what happened that night are still unclear. The fascination with the tragedy and its lasting impact continues to draw attention. The tragedy also led to big changes in shipping regulations and safety rules designed to prevent similar disasters. The Great Lakes region has been forever shaped by this event, and the sinking is now woven into its history and identity. As we look deeper into this tragedy, we're reminded again and again of how powerful and mysterious Lake Superior is. The story is a reminder of the dangers of the sea and the strength of the human spirit in facing nature's greatest challenges. Was the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald a result of a natural disaster, human error, or could it be something even more sinister? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.